Hello, my beautiful book nerd friends. Welcome to my channel. If you're new here, I'm Lindy. I'm here to talk about books. I love books. I read a lot of books. And I have lots of great stuff to tell you about today, including a couple by non-binary authors, a couple by Black authors. Black History Month. Good time to be doing that. And I think I've got 4 by Indigenous authors and 4 picture books. I've got poetry, I've got nonfiction and fiction. So a little bit of everything. I'm quite an eclectic reader. If you've been watching my channel, you know what I'm talking about. But before I get to what I have finished reading, I'm going to tell you about some bookish adventures that I've had. I went and watched a movie in a movie theater. That's so rare for me. But it was the adaptation of Miriam Toews' Women Talking. The director is Sarah Polley, and it is so good. See it if you can. It is amazing. A really powerful book about women working together, listening to each other. Oh, loved it. And I also have some news about one of my favorite writers, Vivek Shraya. This book, How to Fail as a Pop Star, started out as a stage show that she did, and not many performances were made because it was right at the start of the COVID pandemic in 2020. Well, now it's being made into a TV comedy series, 8 episodes long. It's in filming right now, and I think it's going to be great. So I'm looking forward to that. And just today, I got a book in the mail from the publisher, Hachette Books, Lucy Jane Bledsoe's new novel, Tell the Rest. This is actually coming out March 7th. I very rarely request a book from a publisher. Maybe once a year. This might be the only one for 2023. We shall see. I love Bledsoe's work. I've been a fan since the 90s with her collection called Sweat and the novel Working Parts. And this novel is about conversion therapy and what happened to 2 individuals who escaped from a conversion therapy camp and their later lives. So that's all I know about it, besides the author whose writing I think is really excellent. So looking forward to that. All right. On to what I have finished, saving the best for last. But I'm starting strong. I gave 5 stars to Homie, a collection of poetry by Danez Smith. Danez is Black and non-binary. This is actually the second time that I've read through this collection. First time was a couple of years ago. I picked it up right after I read Don't Call Us Dead. And for some reason, because I didn't like this one as well as Don't Call Us Dead, I saw that on Goodreads I'd given Homie 4 stars. Well, reading it again, I don't know where my head was, but it's definitely 5 stars. It's fantastic. My feminist book club discussed this earlier this week, and we were all blown away. The possible reason why I rated it lower is because it's got some uncomfortable emotions in it, or uncomfortable to read. There's a frustration and a rage that comes through in some of these poems, but totally understandable. There are lines like, "Oh, my people, how long will we reach for God instead of something sharper?" There are other poems, like one about his grandmother going to funerals, kind of like she's going to happy hour. The one that's titled My Poems begins, "My poems are getting fed up and getting violent." There's so much emotion in these poems, and also a lot of celebration and joy. So if you're not familiar with Danez Smith's work, I'm going to link to the Poetry Foundation below, so you can read some of their poems and see what you think for yourself. And next I'm going to tell you about a nonfiction picture book called Blue, A History of the Color as Deep as the Sea and as Wide as the Sky. The text is written by a Ghanaian woman, Nane Ekua Brew-Hammond, and the art is by African-American Daniel Minter. You can see the gorgeous jewel tones in this artwork. It's done with acrylic wash on a heavy watercolor paper, and it's just exquisite. Love, love, love the rich colors. And the text itself really encourages a sense of wonder and inquiry, because it covers history and cultural traditions and the science that's all related to the color blue. Like, why is it that the ocean is blue, but when you cup the water in your hands, it's clear? And there's the sad history of indigo plantations using enslaved labor. Why do we call feeling sad the blues, and the music the blues? Where does that come from? There's the continuing contemporary textile traditions in Africa and around the world using indigo. I love that you can see a man here at the sewing machine, and then the connection with first place, blue ribbons, and we see a girl with her science project that has to do with solar energy. And then at the back of this book, there's additional information and lots of suggested readings that you can go to for more information. Next up is another children's picture book, Night Owl, by Christopher Denise. This one was an honor book for the Caldecott Awards this year. That's why I picked it up. It is adorable. There's lots of foreshadowing for the really young readers. This is aimed at preschool till about grade 2. But we see the dragon on the cover. There's a dragon on the end papers. And we have a little owl who wants to be a knight. That's his dream. The author-illustrator has included lots of puns and surprises and visual jokes, like here the teeny tiny owl amidst the other knight graduates. And of course there's going to be an encounter with a dragon, and how will that go? This is definitely a feel-good story. Next up, another picture book, and this one is a memoir by Rhea Thundercloud. It's called Finding My Dance. Thundercloud is Ho-Chunk and Sandia Pueblo, and a professional dancer. The art is by Kalila Fuller. She's got a very flat sort of style. Also it's very appealing. And ends with her as a mother. Next up is another Indigenous picture book. This one is both written and illustrated by Michaela Goade, who is Tlingit from Alaska. It's called Berry Song. So it's about gathering food from the land. Grandmother is showing the little girl how to live on the land, how to gather herring eggs and seaweed and fish. But mostly it's about picking berries. And I love berries. They are my favorite kind of fruit. And this whole book is such a celebration of gorgeous, wonderful berries. Oh, yeah, yum, yum, yum. One of the things that I wanted to mention about this picture book is in the repeating string of names of different kinds of berries, like you see on this page. There's salmonberry, cloudberry, blueberry, nagoonberry. Nagoonberry is one that I know of as Arctic raspberry or dwarf raspberry. I had to look that one up. Huckleberry, soapberry, strawberry, crowberry. Now, instead of soapberry, in the Goodreads publisher's information about this book, that is snowberry. And I looked on the publisher's website, and they also have this string of berries with snowberry there, which I can see why they changed. And there's also this warning at the beginning for if you're foraging, make sure that you go with an experienced adult and someone who can identify berries, because, as an example, snowberry, it's around here, it's most commonly used to refer to a shrub that is in the honeysuckle family. It's an ornamental, and the berry is mildly poisonous. Now, there is a snowberry that's edible, and it's in the wintergreen family. The whole plant looks very different, but that is the problem with common names. So a good warning at the beginning here. Grandma tells me we speak to the land, and the land speaks to us. Oh, such a good representation of reciprocal relationships. I love this picture book. Okay, now we are going on to audiobooks, starting with Man-Made Monsters by Andrea Rogers. This one is read by DeLanna Studi, who's Cherokee, as is the author, and also Lane Factor, who is Creek-Seminole and Caddo. Man-Made Monsters is a collection of 18 stories that are loosely interconnected. They start in 1839 and end in 2039, so they go on into the future, and they all incorporate some kind of monstrous being: vampire, werewolf, sea creature, medical experimentation. Yeah, there's a whole wide variety. Deer Woman. One of the books that I was reminded of is The Gilda Stories by Jewel Gomez. So if you enjoyed that, I strongly recommend that you give Man-Made Monsters a try. The monster trope has been used to demonize queer people, but there's also the tendency for queer people to identify with monsters in stories, and I can give you lots of examples. Lesser known monsters of the 21st century, Dr. Edith Vane and the Hares of Crawley Hall, That's by Suzette Mayer. My Favorite Thing is Monsters by Emil Ferris. Her Body and Other Parties by Carmen Murillo Machada. The anthology Queer Little Nightmares. The Gilda stories, as I mentioned. Luckenbooth by Jenny Fagan. And Our Wives Under the Sea by Julia Armfield. And then we have monster stories by Indigenous authors. So sometimes there's an overlap with queer, as in this case, Man-Made Monsters. Andrea Rogers is queer, and some of the stories in here have explicitly queer characters. And then there's Bad Cree by Jessica Johns, who's also queer, and I'm going to be talking about her book next. Other Indigenous stories that I've read that include monsters are Son of a Trickster by Eden Robinson. Actually, all of Eden Robinson's books tend towards the horror. There's Ghost Lake by Nathan Adler, Birdie by Tracy Lindbergh, The Ex-Indian Chronicles by Thomas Yepow, and The Only Good Indians by Stephen Graham Jones. If you're looking for more recommendations, there's a whole bunch. So going back to Man-Made Monsters for just a sec, another thing that I appreciated is that her stories address Indigenous issues within the tales, like forced relocation and residential schools and missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. Social justice issues are woven right in there. This is considered a YA book, and it's equally appealing to older readers, in my view. So next up, Bad Cree by Jessica Johns. Jessica Johns is queer and Cree. She's from northern Alberta, the province where I live, and the audiobook is read by Tanis Parenteau, who is Métis and Cree, also from northern Alberta. It is a really gripping story that starts out strong. Mackenzie wakes up from a nightmare in which she is holding the severed head of a crow. This bringing objects back and forth into her dreams makes it clear right from the start that these are no ordinary dreams. She's grieving the death of one of her sisters and also her grandmother, and eventually has to go home to Alberta to sort out what's happening with these dreams. I really liked the emphasis on women in a family having to stick together and work together. Missing and murdered Indigenous women comes up in this story as well. But some of the things Mackenzie did made me really impatient, but it's in that horror genre kind of way where you're going, no, don't go in there, don't do that, no. But probably for a lot of readers, that's all part of the enjoyment because it's an expected aspect of the horror genre. I definitely enjoyed it overall. It's an experience that's going to stick with me, but not likely one that I want to read a second time. And actually, that is one of my criteria for giving a book 5 stars. So that's me, and me as a reader. Last up, I did this as a text and audio combo. How Far the Light Reaches, A Life in 10 Sea Creatures by Sabrina Imbler. Oh, they read the audiobook. The essays cover different aspects of being mixed Chinese and white heritage, and also being queer, being non-binary, and tying those into fascination with sea creatures. It's like a dream come true for me, who loves science, loves reading about sea creatures. I love reading about the experiences of queer individuals. And their writing is just gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. We looked nothing like we did in high school. No more makeup, long hair chopped off and sides buzzed, constellations of tattoos on our arms. We both had been expected to be daughters, but turned out to be something else. We had shed our skins, not like snakes, but insects, each of us a nymph, outgrowing exoskeleton after exoskeleton and morphing as we did. We didn't know which molt would be our last, only that we might not be there yet, both of us rivers moving toward the sea. A few years after that, they changed their name and pronouns. Even later, I changed mine. And there are lovely illustrations at the start of each chapter as well that are done by Simon Van. So, that's it for me for this Friday Reads. Thank you so much for watching. If you have read any of these, if you have comments on any of these, please let me know down in the comments. I love hearing from you. Truly, I love it, love it, love it. And I am going to end this video with a short clip from an art exhibit that I went to earlier this week. My sweetie, the artist whose work you see here in this room, had some pieces up in a group show called Endless Summer, and oh, did it feel good to experience a breath of summer through art. See you in the next one. Bye for now.